You put a 2-year-old child in a crib with a bunny rabbit and an apple? Let me know when the child eats the bunny rabbit and plays with the apple.
Welcome to the Cannabis Vegan. I'm Jason Logic. On today's show,
we're going to be looking at the 2016 Cannabis Entrepreneur Summit, where we'll be diving a bit deeper into Auntie Dolores's treatables with Julianna as we go over the cannabis treatable aspect.
This and more from the Cannabis Vegan.
But I notice you have clothes on, and I notice that you have a cell phone and you have a computer. It is unfair to pick one thing that lions do that you want to mimic when you don't want to mimic anything else they do. When lions walk up and greet each other, they sniff each other's ass. When I came in this room, you did not kneel down and sniff my ass.
Hello, how are you? So it's 2008. I was in San Francisco, California, the birthplace of medical cannabis. I decided to go to my very first dispensary. Check it out. I'd never been before. It was a whole new world, and I wanted to explore it. So I found the busiest dispensary in San Francisco. I waited in line for about a half hour to get in. I was dying to see what the display case had to offer. I got to the display case, I looked around a little more, was kind of confused, so there wasn't much there. And everything that was there had white sugar and white flour and some other gross tasting ingredients. So I bought a few edibles, I took them home, I tried them out. I was disappointed in the flavor and the quality, and then I thought to myself, this is a problem. I think I have the solution. But I don't know if there's a demand. So what do you guys think? Is there a demand for quality gourmet edibles 8 years later? I think so. This is a $7 billion industry. It's going to grow to $22 billion in the next 4 years. I think we all want to be part of that. We all want to make that happen. I'm Julianna Carella, and I'm the founder and CEO of Auntie Dolores. We founded in 2008 in San Francisco. Thank you. Thank you. I later founded Treatables in 2013, and Treatables is a CBD pet product line. We are deeply committed to bringing cannabinoids to all animals, humans and animals everywhere, because we all have an endocannabinoid system, and we can all benefit from this profound medicine. So we're here to talk about how to build a brand in this space and how to do it right. And I'm going to try to convey to you all the things that I've learned along the way so that it'll be a little easier for you. So in 2008, if you can believe it, there was only 10 edibles companies in California. Okay? Now there's over 1,000. And of those 1,000, a lot of them are cottage industry producers, but they're still part of the landscape. So we look at all of this because it's important for us. And we're very curious to see what else is going on out there. But this is an issue. We're trailblazers. We're new. We're the new industry, and we're the first movers. But being a trailblazer doesn't always mean that the path is clear. But that doesn't mean that there aren't tried and true business practices that we can use and we can bring to this industry and to help progress it forward. So, who here has had a bad experience with an edible? Almost everybody raised their hand. Even the guys that just came in. We cringe every time we hear that story. It's something that makes us so sad to hear, and yet it's such an inspiration for us to do a better job and to make it work. So I just want to talk about what those steps are. And having a hard time getting this thing to progress forward. Excuse me. as we said earlier. Please forgive the snafus. So thought leadership and the first mover advantage. That's the first thing I'd like to talk about today. You're going to take away 3 things from this meeting. You're going to understand how to build brand trust, how to scale up your business properly and successfully, and how to develop amazing products that we need in the space. So building brand trust. Why is that important? Well, I would argue to say that building brand trust in the cannabis space is probably more important than any other industry. Why do you think that is? Because our customers are patients. They're people with compromised immune systems. They're animals with epilepsy. They're individuals that might have sensitive natures and they're emotionally imbalanced. So many different reasons people turn to cannabis. And we want to make sure that when they turn to our brands, that we're providing something consistent and something that they can rely on as medicine, or they can rely on it as a predictable experience for recreation. So if we're going to get past the stigma and all the misinformation in this industry and in society around cannabis, we have to make sure that we're building brand trust with our products. I think it's really, really important to look at how that happens and the underlying messages that your brand promotes and how that happens. So, someone could just, alrighty, there we go. So, appealing to the patients that are new to cannabis. I think that's a huge milestone that we need to overcome because here we are in California, almost everybody loves cannabis already, right? And the growing population in cannabis is everywhere. Yet there's still a lot of people that haven't turned to cannabis yet. And those are the people that we want to influence and we want to have trust our products. So it's really important to get the support of those people. Now, we discovered a couple years ago that some of the branding with our product was a little confusing. We had been operating in San Francisco for years, but we started working with dispensaries all over the state. And every single city in California had different regulations around how we were to actually label our products. So it was very confusing. And our packaging was confusing because of it. So we decided that we wanted to be a responsible producer and put some verbiage on our packaging that was really important. It wasn't regulated information that needed to be on there because there are no regulations in California, but it was information that was needed. So we adopted some of the practices in some of the other states like Colorado and Washington and decided to adopt the 10 milligram dose. So now when you look at our products, whether it's a 50 milligram product or a 200 milligram product, you'll be able to know by looking at the package what a 10 milligram dose constitutes with each of these products. And that way, when you go to try the product, you'll have a somewhat predictable outcome. There's not going to be any surprises. And hopefully we can avoid having more lawsuits like what unfortunately happened recently, where an edibles company in Colorado is being sued for one person's psychotic moment. I don't know if any of you have heard about this story. I don't want to dwell on it too long, but it is important to mention because we do live in a world where a company like ours or yours or anybody's could be held responsible for one person's psychosis. And that's a scary thing. So back to building the brand trust, we got to make sure that our products say what they're supposed to say and that they do what they're supposed to do. And that if there's any surprises, it's the kind of surprises that people are looking for on a Friday night with their package of cheese crackers, okay? So labeling that promotes education is just, it's so important. Now, that might drive up the cost of your product, of course, to have all this fancy packaging and to make sure that you're producing this awesome product and all the branding and marketing that goes with that. That's extra costs involved. But I can tell you, it's going to keep your product on the shelf, and it's going to mean that your brand is still on the shelf in 10 years from now or 20 years from now. And I'm pretty sure everybody here is interested in that kind of longevity, because that's what's important. Okay. There's actually been 40 or 43 companies that have come and gone in California since we've been in business. And like I said, we started out, there was only 10, now there's 1,000. But of those 1,000 that exist now, I think about 12% are going to survive. So that's a pretty slim margin there. So you want to make sure that you're doing it right from the start, so that you see your product on the shelf in 10 years. And perhaps you see your product not just in dispensaries, but maybe on the shelves of Whole Foods or Dean and DeLuca, because that's our end goal. So back to the product development. I think it's really, really important to do some research with regard to product development. And when we got our start, there was no data available. It was a little frustrating. Fun being a first mover, but also very frustrating not knowing what's going on, what else is out there, what's going to sell well, what's not going to sell well. Where do we start with product development? Well, now you can actually turn to companies like BDS Analytics, who you'll hear from today, or tomorrow rather, and they're going to talk about analyzing the data and how there actually is data to look at now. And if you're starting a products company, you might want to look into this data that's actually available to you, so that you can see where might a vegan product do well, or where might a gluten-free product do well, or where are those kind of products never going to do well because the demographic just wants to get high. They don't care about the dietary value of the product. So there's a lot of different elements to touch on and work through when you're looking at product development. So we also notice that there's a lot of different practices within the dispensaries that, as a producer working with multiple dispensaries, you want to get a lay of the land. And that might mean going out and actually visiting dispensaries. So we've visited probably over 800 dispensaries, most of them here in California, many of them also in Washington, Colorado, Oregon, Nevada. I mean, we go anywhere we can to see what else is going on, and to compare ourselves with other states for regulatory purposes and see what's working, what's not working. And one thing that I notice everywhere I go is how differently edibles happen to be merchandised in this cannabis space. California has these beautiful dispensaries, some of the most gorgeous dispensaries actually, but they tend to merchandise the products in a different way than everywhere else. Often it's 5 to 10% of the real estate in the actual dispensary is promoting the products, okay? Some of these dispensaries don't even have the edibles on display. They're just on a menu. So you have no visibility in those environments. Now, if you go to Colorado or Washington, you see that in the adult use shops, there's just edibles everywhere. It's eye candy all over the walls. It's the first thing you see when you walk in. Now, in California, edibles comprise 10% of the sales. Okay. In Colorado, it's around 40 to 50% of the sales. And I think the way that the products are merchandised has a lot to do with that. And if you're like me and you're visual and you see edibles and you see cool packaging, you want to buy it. It's just that simple. So we want to make edibles popular. How about we merchandise them better? Just a thought. So pricing practices, this is something else as a producer I think it's really good to look at. Most dispensaries do the keystone markup. That's a 50% markup. That means that if you bring an edible to a dispensary and you sell it to them for $5, they're going to sell it for $10. Now, if you're trying to capture a 50 to 60% margin on a $5 edible, that means you need to make that product for $2 to $2.50. I don't know if any of you have bought cannabis oil or even coconut oil or any of the other expensive ingredients out there, but if you want to provide a quality product and you want to do it for $2, I wish you luck. It's just not possible. So you've got to figure out where you can make the adjustments and make a great quality product that's actually going to have a margin, is actually going to be sustainable, and will actually be seen on the shelves 10 years down the road, because that's the goal. So this is all part of your research prior to product development, hopefully, but if not, come back to it at some point and make sure that you're always paying attention to it. So